inside the Gabby Gordon Show. My name is Gabby Gordon. I'm your host and producer, and this is a new type of scenery for you and I. Very, very, very thankful that you're joining me. This is going to be an adjustment for all of us, so I appreciate all the patience as we enter this new era of the Gabby Gordon Show, if you will. This is something that I've been working on for a little bit now. Very excited to get into the swing of things and try and get the visual side of the Gabby Gordon Show up and running. If you haven't watched the Monday Week 2 Wake Up, go ahead, check that episode out. That was a lot of the big takeaways from Week 2 of the NFL. Now as we enter Week 3, things are going to get pretty exciting, and we're gonna jump off the bat in just a minute with that. But this is a new YouTube thing, new YouTube atmosphere. If you're on Spotify, I believe that you can watch this as well. But this is new for me, and so I'd appreciate the patience in the very beginning of things. The layout, we're going to try and edit as things go on, but I'm very, very excited to have the visual aspect. We're going to have some guests on in the future, some incredible people that have really, really made an impact with me in my future, my industry, and some people you may know. So that's going to be exciting. So stay tuned for that. I really see the future of the Gabby Gordon Show going to incredible lengths. So I'm very excited. Make sure that you like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube so you never miss a video. Click the notification bell because, hey, schedules are unpredictable. Breaking news happens fast, and I don't want you to miss a minute of the Gabby Gordon Show. This is a community we're trying to build, and I'm very excited that you are a part of it. Let's get straight down to business, though, because it's Friday, and Week 3 of the NFL is 2 days away. If I keep looking in this direction, this is where my notes are, so bear with me here. We're going to get into some of the key matchups that I see for this week that I'm excited to kind of unlock and get into and give some predictions, some analysis, and whatnot. So I'm going to get straight down to business here, and this is the exciting part, is that we get to do this now, you and me, like best friends talking to each other. So one of the most notable matchups in my mind this week, for me personally, is the Giants and the Chiefs. Now, why? Do you ask why? Well, the Giants played a really impressive matchup against the Cowboys last week. And by impressive, I mean their offense came to life. Russell Wilson had one of the best games of his career. And to date, since he was a Seahawk, because his time with Denver, his time with Pittsburgh weren't really anything to note. He's actually taken a regression since then. So he really stepped up his game against the Cowboys in a game that nobody had predicted that was going to be the game of the week. And I think by far it was the game of the week. You know, the high-scoring finish, the field goal by Brandon Aubrey to seal the deal in overtime. I think that there were very glaring weaknesses within the Giants' defense, which we're going to get to, especially after coming into a Kansas City offense that can do damage, and they haven't done it as of yet, but they can, and it's Patrick Mahomes. We know what he's capable of, and we know he's been to the big bowl multiple times now and has won it multiple times as well. So that's huge. The Giants' offense, if they can keep rolling, is something that I really want to note, and it's really interesting to me because Russell Wilson and the ability that he has, being a Super Bowl winner and a 2-time Super Bowl quarterback, that adds a lot to the offense, even if he isn't necessarily doing everything that they've expected and more. And the whole start Jackson Dart conversation, I think, has been pretty much squashed after last week's performance from the offense, because it's not every day that you see the New York Giants putting up 30-plus points and Giants fans actually enjoying what they're seeing. So from that respect, I think that the quarterback spot is pretty set in stone, barring a complete breakdown from Russell Wilson. And then, of course, Malik Neighbors, the star that he is in his second year in the league, is pretty exciting stuff. But this is a matchup that I got a lot of eyes on for a very specific reason, and it's that the Kansas City Chiefs are in a very, very weird position right now. They're entering this matchup 0-2. They have not had their first victory of the 2025 season yet. And pretty lackluster offensive performances, in my eyes, have come from them. You've got already a Hall of Fame quarterback on your squad. You've got a Hall of Fame tight end on your squad. And you've got pretty decent pieces and a Hall of Fame head coach. That's why they've been able to do what they've done the last couple of years. That's why people have pegged them as a dynasty the last couple of years. Whether or not that's plausible? I don't know. And that's a separate conversation for a separate day. But both of these teams, and the Chiefs specifically, have struggled out of the gate. And this is a team in the Chiefs that have had high expectations. The Giants' struggles are expected. This is a team that has fallen apart in recent years. And after their one playoff game with Daniel Jones, nothing has been the same. And now Daniel Jones isn't even their quarterback anymore. He's doing some great things in Indianapolis. And again, we're going to try and get to that in this show as well. But to stick with the Chiefs-Giants matchup, and now this is a Sunday night primetime game too, so all eyes in America are going to be on this game. What's interesting is that the Giants have the ability to expose the Chiefs here if they can play well. But there's no exposing to be had if the Chiefs wake up and realize who they are, right? So they have struggled out of the gate, like I said, the Chiefs, and they have to really debunk these lies now because there are people who are starting to panic in the eyes of the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think it's way too premature to do that. Number one, it's the Chiefs. You have Patrick Mahomes. That's all you really need to succeed. But secondly, this is a team that's consistently been winning the AFC, consistently making the Super Bowl. Yes, they dropped to the Eagles last year, right? And that was not the outcome that a lot of us expected because it really wasn't a very competitive game against the Eagles. Now to see that they are struggling and are 0-2, and we haven't seen an 0-2 start from the Chiefs in some time. The Giants could expose some things here. And if the Chiefs somehow, some way drop to the Giants and go 0-3, you have to start to wonder if they're going to drop the division. Because I don't see a path where you start 0-3 and you win the division. It's not 100% plausible. But by the same token, the Chiefs can also continue to expose the Giants. One thing about the New York Giants that is interesting to me is that coming into the season, the offense there wasn't high expectations for the offense. You want to see Malik Neighbors take the next step in his second year. He already has. He is a stud. He is, in my eyes, the best player on that team aside from Russell Wilson. And I still think that Malik is the most talented player on that team, certainly on the offense. And it's not close. He is, when you put him in a good position with a solid, competent quarterback, and you have a okay offensive line to give your quarterback time to throw and give the play time to develop, give the route time to develop, good things are going to happen with Malik Neighbors as your receiver. He makes plays that not a ton of second-year wide receivers make. He made plays last year as a rookie that not many rookies make. So Malik is locked in. He is the golden goose of the New York Giants organization. But coming into the season, there weren't totally high expectations for the Giants' offense. There were higher expectations for the defense, and the defense so far has let down massively. The Giants' run defense is a glaring weakness. Okay, New York allowed 220 rushing yards to the Washington Commanders in Week 1. We know how that game ended. And though the Washington Commanders offense didn't let up a multitude of points like the Cowboys did in Week 2, they let up a lot of rushing yards, a lot. And 135 rushing yards to Dallas in Week 2. That is dead last in the NFL. That's 455 yards allowed per game. This represents a continuation of last season's struggles when they finished 27th in run defense. They allowed 136.2 yards per game. Obviously, the stats are inflated right now because we're only entering Week 3, and we'll see if that can somehow change. But they have invested very heavily in their pass rush and just in general in their defense over the last couple seasons, right? Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter, the rookie right now. And that has come at a very, very high expense, right? A very high expense. So the pass rush has generated a 31% pressure rate. That's 16 in the NFL. That's right around the midway point, fairly average, and 6 sacks through 2 games. But their inability to stop the run is causing serious problems. I mean, we saw it in the Dallas game. The fact that you just let Dallas march right down the field. That interception by Russell Wilson put the Cowboys on their own 30, I believe, somewhere around that. So there was still work to be done. If you had a solid defense, you get a stop there. You can get a stop there. But instead, the Giants just let them march right down the field, get into field goal range, and then, of course, you have the Brandon Aubrey field goal. And in today's day and age, in today's NFL, in the league today, you're not going to get many missed field goals from the distance. Of course, especially when it's Brandon Aubrey, probably the best kicker in the league. He's the new Justin Tucker with that leg. So now you're going up against a run scheme that includes Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt that is successful. But Kansas City's had some recent rushing struggles. They've ranked 17th with just 94 yards from Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt on 28 carries. That's 3.36 yards per carry. But again, there's a lot of buts here, right? Because you have many avenues to succeed and at the same time, many avenues to fail miserably. You have to remember that you're going against Patrick Mahomes. So while Pacheco and Hunt haven't had the production that you may expect from Kansas City, Mahomes offers the same scrambling ability. And the Giants have left the field open on quarterback scrambles. Dak was able to do it. Jaden Daniels was able to do it. He leads all NFL signal callers with 123 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on 13 attempts. He's averaging 9.5 yards per carry. All of Mahomes' rushes have been scrambles, which is really, really highlighting his ability to improvise facing pressure. So even though you've got Brian Burns, you've got Kayvon Thibodeau, you've got Dexter Lawrence, you've got Abdul Carter, you have to be able to stop the run because Mahomes is able to escape these potential sacks. He's able to escape when the pocket collapses on him, and the Giants have to make that adjustment. They have to make that adjustment. So how can the Kansas City Chiefs exploit the matchup? How can the Kansas City Chiefs prove that they're actually still legit? Well, they have to start the run game early. They have to. I don't see this being a relatively high-scoring game. The Chiefs' offense, for me, has not been there. There's been some holes in it. You see Travis Kelce, who's usually the most reliable receiver for Mahomes. He's had some struggles. He's dropped some passes. That costly ball that went right through his hands last week was a very costly interception. And that hurts. That can be the difference between winning and losing sometimes. So they have to utilize their run defense. They have to utilize their run offense, rather. And they have to do it early. You have to have both designed runs from Mahomes. You have to have handoffs to Pacheco, to Hunt. Pacheco and Hunt are ballers. They're strong guys. We saw Pacheco and his ability. Kareem Hunt, he's been able to do good things too, especially when, earlier on in his career. So if you can run the ball effectively, number one, that's serving very, very, very high purposes. You're controlling the pass rush too, because if you're not throwing the ball as much, there's no pass rush to be had. You're handing off the ball. You're exploiting the Giants' run defense and those lacks where it lacks struggles. You're keeping your drives alive. You're getting consistent yardage, and you're creating play action opportunities downfield. And the Giants' secondary, it can be exploited too. Because the offensive line for Kansas City on their offensive side is facing criticism. It's allowing pressure in an average of 2.45 seconds. That's the 5th quickest in the NFL. Mahomes doesn't have a ton of time to throw the ball anymore like he used to. And it's because of that the run game needs to be more apparent in this matchup. The Giants also bring extra rushers too. The defensive coordinator, Shane Bowen, he's deploying pressure packages fairly frequently. And this aggressive approach, like we've seen, it leaves running lanes opened for the design, for the scramble, and it's happened and it's hurt the Giants multiple times. And in the matchup against the Cowboys, we saw that. We saw the exposure of those running lanes on pressures. And I appreciate a defensive coordinator who wants to put it on heavy. I appreciate that. I do, because you're the New York Giants. You have to put it on heavy because you're not necessarily going to get the production out of your offense week after week after week against decent defenses, right? So you have to be able to do it on the other side of the ball. Shane Bowen, a lot of criticism there too. If this is a defensive nightmare again this week, there's some questions surrounding the defensive coordinator position and the job now for New York. So there's a lot that's riding on this matchup. You have a Chiefs team with a championship pedigree, coaching advantage under Andy Reid. Sorry, Brian Daboll isn't Andy Reid. There's questions with Daboll too. Do you see success in this organization with Brian Daboll as your head coach through and through? Some may say yes and give it another try. Some, it's a clear no. And then this is against a Giants team that's struggling with penalties, struggling with missed assignments, struggling with discipline issues. I mean, the 4 consecutive penalties by Hudson last week was something I've never seen in my entire time watching football. I haven't been around that long. I'm 20 years old. But I'll tell you, in my time watching football, I've never seen that before. And I think multiple people who have watched for decades longer than me say the same thing. It's never happened before. You can't have a nervous breakdown on the field like that and then come off the field and give all these problems. Like, that was crazy. That was last week, though. But there's a lack of discipline with the Giants. And there's more discipline in Kansas City. There's better execution in Kansas City. But if they don't exploit the weaknesses of the Giants, if Kansas City can't pull this out, even if they do pull it out and it's not necessarily pretty, there's a lot of questions. There is a lot of questions. And that's something interesting, very interesting to me. Another matchup that is huge this week that I am so excited to see is Detroit and Baltimore, because I think that this could be an offensive explosion once again. Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions did absolutely everything that they needed to do, and they did everything right in the offensive explosion last week. But that was against the Bears, right? The Bears are not a great franchise right now. They've got a new coach in Ben Johnson who is playing against his former team, his former employer, when he was the offensive coordinator for Detroit under Dan Campbell. So what's the sample size there with that game? It's not all that high. And most teams can put up a big number like that against a team like the Bears. And that's not disrespect to the Bears. I think that they're on the come up in their franchise. They're definitely on the come up. I think Caleb Williams is a great player, and I can't wait to see what he continues to do. Goff completed 12 of 14 passes, 198 yards, 2 touchdowns in play action looks against the Bears. So the play action really worked. And it seemed like the play action is what cooked the Bears and unlocked the offense, because they had a brutal game against Green Bay. They couldn't get anything going. That was not a hard matchup for Green Bay, and it should have been, right? Those are really solid teams in the NFC, and especially in the NFC North. And dropping that divisional matchup was bad for Detroit, concerning for Detroit. And they got to bounce back now. He's 21, Jared Goff is 21 of 24 passing on the season in play action to open up the year. He's got 279 yards, those 2 scores from last week. And when the Lions are running the ball well, and Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown are clicking, the play actions are a nightmare to defend against. They are a nightmare. Amon-Ra St. Brown had about 40 fantasy football points last week. I think if I remember correctly, I was going against him. Why don't I remember correctly? Because it was a week for me to forget. I lost Joe Burrow, and we're going to talk about that matchup right after this one, but that was some tough stuff in fantasy to go against Goff and any Lions offensive player, because they really went off, but especially St. Brown. He is second in the league with 108 receiving yards off the play action pass. So he's also fresh off of his first 3 touchdown catch of the game in his career too. He's never had that before. He had a career game. That's special stuff. So it's clear already off the bat that the Ravens have to defend against the play action. They have to have a scheme there, because that is what the Lions do best. That is what Dan Campbell does best. The explosive plays from the rushing attack didn't hurt in week 2 as well. They got much better in terms of the offensive line. You had a lot more time to throw the ball. Play action passes need to develop. You had a lot more time to throw the ball if you're Jared Goff, and your run game was pretty solid. Your run game was solid. Jahmyr Gibbs had a nice day as well. The Ravens and their defense, they're able to do a little bit of everything. And they have a strength of defending the play action pass. They are allowing only 4.2 yards per play action play. They rank 4th in the league in that. And quarterbacks are averaging 67.5 passer rating in play action looks against the Ravens. That's why this is going to be such an exciting matchup, because I do think it's going to be relatively exciting and high scoring. I think by the same token, though, I think the Lions are going to have a problem in needing to change up their scheme. Raven safety Kyle Hamilton, he has morphed into the catalyst of this Baltimore defense. I mean, he and the Lions safety, Brian Branch, they're the best in the NFL at what they do. No question. And both teams are aware of the other. These are two solid defenses for the most part. These are two solid offenses for the most part. I'll tell you, if I want to take a quarterback, it's going to be Lamar Jackson. He's just got better scramble ability. He's more athletic than Jared Goff, and that's not a knock on Goff. It's just the truth. It's what you see. The Ravens, they faced the Bills and Josh Allen. They faced the Browns and Joe Flacco to open up the year. So that was a test for the defense, more so on the Josh Allen Bills side. Joe Flacco's not a bad quarterback, though. He's been around for a long time. He's a veteran guy. He knows what to do. Allen only had 6 play-action looks in the opener. He completed 3 of those for only 11 yards against the Ravens. And PFF ranked him 32nd. That's last among quarterbacks in those looks in the team's 41-40 win over the Ravens week 1. Heartbreaking loss for Baltimore in week 1. Baltimore's defense handled the play action well against the Browns too, though. They surrendered only 33 passing yards on 5 completions for Flacco's play action work. So you've got a scheme in Detroit that is very, very heavy on play action pass and run game. And you have a scheme in Baltimore that is very heavy defensively on stopping that exact scheme. So you're going to either have both teams come out with fireworks and exposure of defense, or you're going to have both teams polar opposite, and it's going to be a defensive game. And you're not going to have many points. I think it's going to be the latter, the first one, actually. I think it's going to be a game that we see high scoring, but there's going to need to be adjustments offensively. I'm sure that's what's been worked on in practice all week long. I want you to look at this, or not look at it. I'm going to read it to you. Jared Goff passing chart versus the Bears. On play action, he was 12 of 14, 198 yards, 2 touchdowns, over 10 air yards, 8 of 11, 241 yards, 2 touchdowns. In breaking routes, 11 of 13, 245 yards, 3 touchdowns. Goff's plus 16.8% CPOE. It's his highest mark in a game since week 4 of 2024 against Seattle at home. So his pass chart as a whole, 23 of 28, 334 yards. He had 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Have a day, Jared Goff. But that scheme may not work this week. That's the difference. He had some really solid completions. Some really, really prime Jared Goff plays. But I still think Lamar Jackson is a more talented quarterback than what we've seen from Jared Goff. And Goff's been around for a long time. He really has been around for a long time. So are the Lions underdogs in this matchup? Are they? That's a question that's really interesting to ask. The Lions also, both teams have their fair share of injuries right now, too. If you're heading in, these are the odds right now for this matchup. I can pull it up here. Here's the spread, 4.5. So this is a close game prediction, as it should be. The Ravens are the favorite right now. The money line, 225. Lions money line, plus 185. The over, 52.5, is minus 112. The under is minus 1.8. So this can go either way. And these are the betting trends. And I'm not using this necessarily for betting purposes. These are just the trends and things we've talked about, right? Lions are 12-6 against the spread in the last 18 games. They got the upper hand. And the over is 6-2 in the Lions' last 8 games. That is partially why I think this is going to be a relatively high-scoring matchup, but not even because of the betting aspect. I'm not a bettor. I don't do that. I'm also underage, so I can't do that. But I do look at the analytics and I do look at the numbers, and I think it's very interesting when you look at the over-under totals and how close they are. Minus 108, minus 112. That's crazy. And then the spread's 4.5. That's expected. I think it should be relatively close. Both teams. This is a matchup that can go either way in my eyes, and I'm glad it's the Monday night game because that's a matchup that you want. You want that one promoted. There's a lot of injuries as well, though, for both teams. You got Isaiah Likely, who's questionable tight end. Isaiah Likely is a big target. He's a big target for Lamar. He's big in physical status too. Kyle Van Noy, questionable. Patrick Ricard, questionable. Marlon Humphrey, questionable. Rasheen Ali, questionable. For the Lions, you got IR now in Shane Zylstra, if I pronounce that properly. You got a questionable running back. You got a questionable linebacker. Marcus Davenport, questionable. Jamarco Jones, IR. Here's my player to watch for this matchup. It's Jared Goff. It's got to be Jared Goff. Is he legit? Is he the franchise quarterback? You look at last season and what the Lions were able to do. Number 1 seed action. And their ability to just absolutely go off in the NFC was really special stuff. Really special. Especially after the first season when Dan Campbell inherited this team and how terrible it was and how he was able to come back from that. Really, really special. And then they completely blew it. Completely blew it in the playoffs. Very disappointing fashion. They had the bye and everything, and then they come out and they're one and done. How does that happen, right? Are they frauds? I don't know. Is it on the quarterback? I don't know. The Lions have struggled week 1. They had a bounce back week 2. It was against the Bears. Take it or leave it. Goff has been fantastic to start this season, though. He has completed an eye-popping 80.6% of passes. That's huge. He has 559 passing yards. He's got 6 touchdowns. He's got only 1 interception. If the Lions want to beat the Ravens against the Ravens defense, they need Goff to be an elite quarterback this week again. This is not the Chicago Bears. This is the Baltimore Ravens. This is a team with playoff aspirations, not even playoff aspirations, Super Bowl aspirations. This is a team with a quarterback, an MVP quarterback, who is a freak of nature athletically, who has been called a running back for years. And he's anything but that. He's got an arm, he's got an ability, and he's special. And the defense is able to really control what the Lions are good at. So if you are a Super Bowl quarterback, if you are a high-level playoff aspirations quarterback, then Jared Goff, you need to be elite this week. You need to lift up your team. You need to use your targets. You and St. Brown need to be on the same page from the beginning to the end of this game. Your run game with Jahmyr Gibbs needs to be next level. It's the only way. It's the only way. This matchup that we got to get to, and probably the final one because we're already half an hour in to the podcast, is the Bengals and the Vikings. This is an interesting one because you got 2 backup quarterbacks playing, and this is something the NFL hasn't seen in 27 years. Cincinnati's side, Jake Browning is going to be starting for a 2-0 Bengals team, so they have a nice cushion, especially after Burrow went down in that last game. Jake Browning comes in, and he's able to secure the victory. So a 2-0 cushion is big, but how long can they keep that going? The team's 31-27 win over the Jacksonville Jaguars was where Burrow suffered the toe injury. He's sidelined for at least 3 months. He's going to get surgery. They called it turf toe to begin with, but it's more than that. It's ligaments involved, and he needs surgery. I believe he's getting the surgery. If not, regardless, he's out until close to the playoffs if they make a playoff push. In Minnesota, Vikings 1-1. They're starting Carson Wentz. We haven't seen Wentz in some time. J.J. McCarthy's out now. So he's injured. He got injured last week, his ankle. And McCarthy's been getting killed. I mean, the Vikings O-line is not great. He could be out for up to a month according to some reports. So the game on Sunday is Browning versus Wentz. That will mark the first time in 27 years that two quarterbacks are facing each other in week 3 after not starting in week 1 or week 2. If you think this game is going to be anything other than a huge run game, I don't know what you're thinking, because I don't think both quarterbacks are going to get many opportunities to throw the ball. They have pretty decent run games. Vikings got Jordan Mason now, who's going to get the bulk of the carries because Aaron Jones is on the IR. And on the other side of things, the Bengals have a pretty decent run game as well. This is a bizarre coincidence for the league, because this also involves the Vikings 27 years ago. It happened in 1998. And the Vikings had started Randall Cunningham in week 3 against a Lions team that sent out Charlie Batch. If you even remember those names, I wasn't even around for that. 1998. Wasn't even alive yet. I was still cooking. I wasn't even cooking. I wasn't even a thought yet. The Giants went 15-1 in 1998. Brad Johnson actually started the first 2 games before he suffered a broken leg in week 2. And as for Detroit, Scott Mitchell was the starter. And then he was benched after the loss to drop them 0-2 in week 2. So can the Bengals survive Joe Burrow's injury? Can they survive? Because their schedule plays out in a not so nice manner. This is not an easy schedule for the Bengals. We'll look at the schedule after we really look at the specific matchup. Carson Wentz comes into this. He once played at an MVP level. He once was the guy in Philadelphia until he got hurt. Nick Foles, Super Bowl champions, yada, 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 right? When he takes the field on Sunday, he's going to become the first quarterback since 1950 to start for 6 different teams in 6 straight seasons. That's pretty insane. That's an insane stat. 6 different teams, 6 straight seasons. He's played since 2020. So the last 5 years, he's played for the Eagles, the Colts, the Commanders, the Rams, and the Chiefs. Now the Bengals. So when you face a quarterback that's been around the block like Carson Wentz, it adds to your help, because there's a lot of film to watch. There's a lot of film. This is a guy who's played in many, 6 now, different schemes offensively. He hasn't been the starter for all of them. He's largely been the backup guy, but he's got a lot of schemes on his side. So Bengals defensive coordinator Al Golden, he said he's been doing this. Quote, "I've been studying the last 2 days all of his reps." That is a long, long list of reps to look at, because you have to be able to realize that Wentz hasn't started more than 2 games in the past 2 seasons. He's started 2 games in the past 2 seasons. That's it. But I think he's still a dangerous quarterback in some respect. I think because he's got so many schemes, because he's got so much ability, because he's been around, doesn't make him a great quarterback, but it makes him a dangerous one in the sense that he can adapt. He's had to. 6 teams, not easy. I mean, he moves well. He's an athletic guy. He signed with the Vikings August 24th. It means he's had less than a month to learn Minnesota's offense. Less than a month. I think I mentioned 2 seconds ago that the Bengals on his pedigree chart of teams. That was a brain moment right there. Obviously, he's a Minnesota Viking playing against Jake Browning. The upside for him is that if he gets confused, he can just throw it up to Justin Jefferson and hope that it gets caught. That's what the Giants do. And that's not disrespect to the Giants, but it's something that sometimes works when you have a really talented quarterback. I mean, a really talented wide receiver and a half-competent quarterback. You just toss that ball up to your best receiver, the number 1 guy, and hope that something happens. Hope that something works. So, J Jettas, the ball's going to get in his hands quite a bit. If you're a J Jettas fantasy owner, get excited. You're going to get a lot of targets. Maybe not completions, but you're going to get a lot of targets. McCarthy didn't really look that impressive during his first 2 starts as well, so it's not too crazy to think that if Wentz goes out there and does the Bengals dirty, he could hold on to the starting job a little bit longer. They can put some wins together. They can get a winning record. They're 1-1 right now. It's very feasible. He may be the starter for a little bit. He may be the starter. You got to remember here that he knows how to pick up a franchise when they're down. He's done it 6 teams. I mean, he hasn't been the guy that's had to step in during injury in all those six different teams and 6 straight seasons. But he's had to adapt, new playbook, new teammates, new scheme. He's got history in the league. Who else has history with Carson Wentz? That's Bengals coach Zac Taylor. In 2017, the former number 2 overall pick led the Eagles to a 13-2 record. He suffered a season-ending injury in Week 14 over the Rams. And Zac Taylor was an assistant coach on the Rams team, so he was there when that injury happened. Then 2020, Taylor faced Wentz again, this time as head coach of the Bengals, and then they tied that game 23-23. So based on the history with Carson Wentz, Zac Taylor understands that you can't count this guy out. He said, quote, "He's got a level of experience. I've seen him play at an extremely high level, an MVP level, played against him multiple times. I feel like this is a guy that I've seen play hundreds of times," end quote. And the theme continues with people recognizing Wentz and his athleticism. He's running an offense that's still learning, a young team that was led by a young quarterback that's now hurt. So this is an offense that has still got a lot of growing pains. That's not going to be the case for the Bengals. The Bengals are relatively set in stone, and they've had Burrow as their guy for many seasons now, and they've come short. But it's an offense that has been pretty set in their ways with Zac Taylor as head coach. Browning's been in Cincinnati since 2023. He's already got 7 starts under his belt. He's 4-3. 2 years ago when he took over for Burrow with that season-ending wrist injury. And Browning has actually thrown a pass this year. He's actually been in a game this year, so that works to his advantage too. Wentz, not so much. Wentz has only played 2 games in the last, whatever I said before, years. Browning threw for 241 yards, 2 touchdowns. He threw 3 interceptions in a short amount of time, but he made up for that because he had a 92-yard game-winning drive when he scored on a short quarterback sneak with 18 seconds left. 3 interceptions scares you because there wasn't much time to throw 3 interceptions, but it also kind of maybe excites you offensively because he's not afraid to throw the ball. He's been with the team for 2 years. He's got 7 games he's had. 4-3 is not outstanding, but what are you working with when you come in and you lose your QB1? It's not totally ugly. Both quarterbacks are definitely going to be under pressure this week because this could be a turning point for one of the teams and in opposite directions. This is going to be a turning point for the Vikings in a positive way if they win this game. If the Bengals lose this game, that's questionable because their schedule doesn't get much easier. Let's take a look at their schedule. So, Cincinnati Bengals schedule. Week 4, they take on the Broncos. At the Broncos. Broncos are a really, really, really impressive defense so far. Then they go on, take on the Lions. We'll see how the Lions do this week, and then I'll let you know what I'm thinking about Week 5, but we still got 2 weeks, still 2 weeks away from that. Then they play the Packers. The Packers have been pretty dominant. Steelers, the Jets, to me, I think that they can get that done, but the Jets offensively haven't been terrible. Justin Fields, he had a concussion, and he a little shaky and consistent. Then the Bears and the Steelers again in Week 11. The Patriots, the Ravens, the Bills, the Ravens, the Dolphins, the Cardinals. And then you hope by December that Burrow's back. Week 18, they finish their season against the Browns. So reasonably, how many games do you think you can pull out here? Well, in my humble opinion, I think that they win this game against the Vikings. I think that Jake Browning's got more of a set-in-stone offense to work with right now rather than the Vikings, who are still kind of putting together who they are and who they have been under a guy who has just been thrown out there in J.J. McCarthy. I don't think they beat the Broncos. I think the Broncos are just superior defensively right now. I don't think they beat the Lions. So what does that make them? That makes them 1-2 so far. I don't think they beat the Packers, and that's not bias. Yes, I'm wearing a Green Bay Packers shirt, but that's not biased. The Packers, to me, are a better team, and they've got a better defense. So what is that? That's 1-3. I do think that they can beat the Steelers, 2-3. I do think they can beat the Jets, 3-3. I do think they can beat the Bears at home, 4-3. Then the Steelers again. Do you see them taking both games? Let's say they don't, 4-4. I do see them beating the Patriots, 5-4. The Ravens, I don't see. So that's 5-5. The Bills, I don't see, 5-6. The Ravens, again, I don't see, 5-7. But by December 14th, week 14, when they play the Ravens again at home, the hope is that Burrow is pretty much on his way back, if not already, because this is a 3-month injury, they say. And what are we now? We're September 19th. So you got September, October, November, December, 3 months. Around that time frame, he could be back. So it's going to be interesting. And then they finish their season last 3 matchups, Dolphins, Cardinals, Browns. I can see them beating the Dolphins, and the Dolphins are another huge question mark right now because they're 0-3. They just dropped last night to the Bills, and they just don't look good. So is it time to panic? I don't know. And then the Cardinals and the Browns both can go, in my eyes, either way. So this is an interesting spot. This is an interesting spot for the Bengals specifically, but also for the Vikings, how they can bounce back. And is Carson Wentz still that guy? Is he still that guy? Because I don't know. This is a game that, again, can go either way. There's a lot of matchups this week that can go either way, and that's the beauty of NFL football because it's pretty exciting stuff. That's going to wrap up the Gabby Gordon Show for Friday, September 19th, 2025. If you haven't already, you know what to do. Make sure that you like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you are going through the link tree, you can also, I believe, follow the link tree, and there's a post notification bell somewhere on the top right, I think, when you go to the link tree. If not, then you can tell me I don't know what you're talking about, Gabby. But that's a great way to make sure that you never miss a video. There's a lot of sports going on right now. What's really interesting even now, too, is that there's still baseball going on. We can't neglect baseball yet. There's really not much to talk about in the baseball side of things because, for me personally, I think the Yankees and the Mets are in different spots right now, but at the same time, pretty similar, which is weird to say. But we can't get into too much Yankees and Mets and baseball analysis just yet. When the playoff picture is set, we'll definitely get into some of those things. All your matchups are on the bottom of the screen, but you can also just look them up. Make sure you follow me on socials. They're going to pop up in like 2 seconds. Just wait for it. There it is. Follow me on socials. Interact with me. I answer DMs. I answer messages. Instagram, Gabby Gordon with 2 N's. X, Gabby Gordon on X. TikTok, Gabby.Gordon with 2 N's. Trying to start some interactive stuff on TikTok as well. Some live streams and whatnot. So follow me there. This is an exciting new time. You want to stay tuned to the podcast because we're going to have some guests on, and this show is going to get pretty exciting very, very quickly. And I'm very, very honored to have you joining me to be a part of it all. Thank you so much for being here this Friday. I will catch you Monday when we do our Week 3 Wake Up NFL regarding some of the biggest takeaways from Week 3, and a lot of the things we discussed here will soon be addressed. Make sure, again, subscribe, like, notifications, all that fun stuff so you don't miss it because there may be some extra bonus episodes in there sometimes too. We're still setting the schedule up and getting it pretty set in stone and still learning the visual side of things too. But you're all beautiful people. I appreciate you more than you know. Be awesome. I'll see you Monday. Have a good one.